Voice of Cards The Isle Dragon Roars. A long name, and one that I wouldn't entirely bother with saying completely if the game didn't have a sequel titled Voice of Cards The Forsaken Maiden. Those are the full titles. They're really going for length here. The first game, which I'm just going to call The Isle Dragon Roars because it's easier, was released in late 2021, which makes it, as of the time of this video, a fairly newish game. But being new doesn't exempt it from getting a story recap because the story in this game is pretty interesting and I want to share it with you all. 3 notes. 1, I did give this game a full review, so if you want to check that out, I linked it in the description and also at the end of this video. 2, I'm going to include the game demo in this recap because the demo held aspects of the story not seen in the full game, and I think that's worth taking into account. And 3, I want to thank the good folks at Square Enix for providing a copy of this game so that I could make both the aforementioned review and this RPG recap. With that being said, let's dive right into the story of Voice of Cards The Isle Dragon Roars. The story begins in Castle Advent, with Queen Nilla having summoned 3 members of the Ivory Order, Winifred, Hedwyn, and Berwyn, to her side to fulfill a request. The Queen claims that the royal treasure, a small bottle of some unidentified liquid, has been stolen, and entreats the Ivory Order to recover it for her. She can't offer much info to help them, but states that witnesses to the crime may be found in the neighboring town of Nexton. The trio travel to Nexton, where everyone seems happy to greet the members of the Ivory Order, as they're unparalleled warriors and make the world's best medicines. The Order's main purpose is to make and distribute medicine even, and medicines are not to be trifled with, apparently, since a young man tells the trio of a rumor about monsters sneaking around the outskirts of the town stealing medicine. And only medicine. Medicine is serious business. The rumors convince the trio that the monstrous medicine thief in the rumor must be the same thief that stole the royal treasure, and they head west to uncover the truth. They come to the western shore, where over the water lies a cave filled with monsters. Makes sense that the thief fled there if that's where all the monsters live, but I mean, it's not like the Ivory Order haven't been fighting monsters on the entire journey to the shore, so... Anyway, a fisherman offers them the use of his boat so long as they remove the curse he insists lies upon it. Finding themselves without the necessary dispeller to remove said curse, the trio heads back to Nexton to buy some at the apothecary. As they arrive, a young man bumps into them as he rushes out the door, angering Winifred and making her swear she'll teach him manners if they ever meet again. Which definitely isn't foreshadowing, nuh-uh. They buy a bottle of dispeller, rush back to the fisherman, and free the boat from the apparent curse. The boat now being perfectly fine for use, the Ivory Order trio use it to cross the water to the Cave of Monsters. Deep in the cave, they find a chest being guarded by monsters, whom they handily defeat. Inside the chest lies a fancy bottle filled with medicine, the royal treasure that they were sent to recover. They return to Queen Nilla and hand over the recovered treasure. The Queen is elated and offers to grant them a reward of whatever they desire, but before anyone in the trio can reply, a great and terrible roar shakes the walls of the castle. A guard rushes into the throne room and declares that the roar came from a dragon who just flew overhead.
A dragon. So the great evil has returned.
The dragon is a terror that was defeated once before, whereupon it fled and troubled people no more. The only option is to defeat it again. Queen Nilla puts out the call for anyone, be they adventurer, bounty hunter, whatever, to take up arms and slay the great dragon that has returned to ravage the land anew. Naturally, she offers a great reward for whoever manages to succeed. The Ivory Order trio insists that they will be the ones to succeed, since they're strong and well supplied and did recently manage to get the royal treasure back after all. For which the Queen is very grateful, by the way, since she gets such an upset stomach without that medicine. Good to know that the royal treasure is basically fantasy Pepto-Bismol. Anyway, it's not just the Ivory Order who think that their victory is assured. A young man in the gathered crowd is practically salivating over the gold he'll claim if and when he slays the dragon. The man's name is Ash, and together with his monster companion Mar, they set out to find and slay the foul dragon. But not before gathering some strong associates, because they don't want to die on their quest after all, so making friends with strong people is just a given. Most of the gathered adventurers tell Ash and Mar to GTFO, wanting the full share of the reward for themselves, but one woman standing at the signpost in town where Ash originally saw the call for people to come slay the dragon, reluctantly agrees to join them. But not before mistaking Mar for a hostile monster and slinging magic at him. After explaining that Mar is not a monster, and learning of the woman's absolute hatred for monsters and the dragon, she says her name is Melanie and agrees to team up with Ash and Mar, knowing that she's not strong enough to defeat the dragon on her own. Passing through Nexton, people seem to recommend heading northwest to Thriston, as a well-known monster researcher lives there and may be able to offer some advice on dealing with the dragon. As the party prepares to leave town, they literally bump into the Ivory Order trio. There's a bit of a standoff, as the Order is pissed that Ash disrespected them, and Ash is pissed that he stumbled into them, but both parties go their separate ways. Which is when Ash notices that he accidentally grabbed Winifred's coin purse when he bumped into her. Accidentally. How do you do that and not notice anyway? Naturally, this goes over even less well than having the audacity to bump into them, and the party is soundly trounced by the much stronger Ivory Order. The trio takes pity on the weakling adventurers and heals them with magic, but 2 lessons were learned there that day. 1, don't fuck with the Ivory Order, and 2, gotta get stronger or the dragon will hurt everyone even worse. The party makes their way to Thriston and visits the monster researcher they were told about, known as Dr. Spry. Ash asks about the dragon, and Dr. Spry says he'll only answer if the party does him a favor. See, a monster stole a treasure from him, and oh wow, monsters in this world just have the stickiest of fingers, don't they? Spry says the monster is hiding in the western cave, so it's off to the cave. The group explores the western cave and finds a treasure chest near the end, which, just like last time, is guarded by a monster. A monster that is summarily defeated, leaving the treasure chest free for the looting. But wait, because while Ash and friends were busy fighting the monster, the Ivory Order arrived and started rooting through the chest, taking advantage of the fact that someone else was doing all the hard work. They loot the chest of all its valuables, leaving behind only a ragged doll, which Melanie decides to take with her. Back in Thriston, at Dr. Spry's house, Melanie hands over the ragged doll, explaining that it was all that they found. Spry takes the doll and explains that it used to belong to his daughter, who passed away many years ago. The doll was a memento of her, and when Monster stole it, he understandably wanted it back. He's grateful to everyone for returning it to him, and doesn't so much agree to explain what he knows about the dragon, so much as he tells everyone that there's a town east of there called Unionville where humans and monsters live together peacefully. He's sure you'll learn what you need to know there. But to get to Unionville, the party must first pass through the Bewildering Wood, and Spry gives Ash a flute that he says will help them there. How? Shush, don't ask any questions. Ash, Mar, and Melanie make their way to the Bewildering Wood, which is full of fog and mist and switching pathways and the occasional singing harpy, definitely living up to its name of bewildering. The only clues to traversal are written on stone stelae that the party encounters, which lead them east to a stone monument that directs them to play in tune with the forest. Oh, that's why the flute is necessary. Ash whips out the flute and gives it a good tootling. Suddenly, a young woman rushes at the party, shouting at Ash that his playing sucks. She introduces herself as Ridis, a woodlander who lives in the forest, and explains that the flute calls woodlanders to whoever plays it, somehow. Ash asks Ridis to lead them out of the forest, and Ridis agrees, but demands the flute in exchange. Seems like a fair trade. Ridis leads the party to Woodland, her hometown in the middle of the Bewildering Wood, where she announces that she's got some stuff to do for the rest of the day, and so won't lead the party out of the forest until tomorrow. Paying a visit to Ridis at home, the party finds her practicing playing the flute, giving her quite a scare since she didn't notice anyone just walking into her home without invitation. Yeah, Ridis, I'd be surprised if someone did that too. Surprised and angry. Anyway, both Ridis and her mother reveal that the family carries a lot of debt, and that Ridis now spends most of her time trying to pay off that debt and take care of her sick mother, who's too ill to pay off that debt on her own anymore. The party retreats and goes to the inn for the night, helping themselves to a tasty feast that Ash insists they deserve for being such amazing heroes. Suddenly, Mar just, eats absolutely everything on the table. That just happened. In the middle of the night, the party is awoken by screams of fire coming from outside. They run outside and find that it's Ridis' house that's ablaze. Ridis shouts that her mother is trapped inside and goes to the well for water to douse the flames. Mar repeats his trick of consuming everything, but sucking up all the water from the well in one go, rushing back to Ridis' house and acting as a freaking fire hose to put out the flames. As the flames die, a firewolf darts out and attacks, apparently pissed that the lovely conflagration it caused doesn't exist anymore. But hey, now it doesn't exist anymore either, so yay? Ridis' mother, now safe and rescued, says that the beast just came out of nowhere and set things on fire. Why? Who knows? But the danger is past, so the party returns to the inn for the rest of the night. The next day, the party makes their way back to Ridis' house to get her to lead them out of the Bewildering Wood. Her house is pretty damaged, unsurprisingly. Ridis is confounded by why a fire doggo showed up, since they're not native to that area. It apparently showed up while she was playing the woodland flute. Ridis is still exhausted and confused from the events of the previous night, but will still honor her agreement to lead you out of the wood. The party, Ridis now included, leaves town by the eastern exit, back into the Bewildering Wood. An old man, known to Ridis as Mr. O, calls out to them and hands over a piece of paper. It's an invoice saddling Riddis with 1 million gold worth of additional debt due to the fire damage on her house, which is now revealed to be rented rather than owned. Mr. O says that the payment is due by the end of the month and just leaves. Freaking landlords, man, I swear. Riddis seems remarkably unbothered by the newfound debt and just starts playing the woodland flute. This makes monsters appear from the woods and attack the party. After fighting off the monsters, Riddis looks confused and starts reading a huge book she apparently brought along. She swears the party to secrecy before explaining that the tune she played is one she got from a page in the book, which says that it's a lucky tune that will make your money problems go away. That's what she was playing the night before when the flaming wolf thing showed up. Ash examines the page that Riddis talks about and finds that there's a scrawled note that says,
May summon monsters if played incorrectly.
Maybe write that a bit bigger on the freaking page next time, you unknown jerk of a musician. Ash takes the flute away from Riddis for safety's sake, though Riddis is clearly unhappy about that, as she still believes that playing the tune will lead her to riches. I mean, in a way, she's not wrong though. Play that tune, mess it up, monsters show up. Beat the monsters, get a financial reward, because monsters always drop money in fantasy settings. It's like a rule or something. So in a weird way, Riddis is right. Even if she never plays the tune properly, she could get rich so long as she beats up the waves of monsters that are drawn to the bad music. Have I thought about this too much? Probably. As promised, Riddis leads the party out of the bewildering wood, and after doing so, she asks to join the party and their quest to hunt and kill the dragon. She hopes that she can use some of the reward money to pay off her debt. Ash is resistant to the idea, but Riddis and Melanie guilt-trip him into eventually agreeing. Onward to Unionville! As soon as the party enters the town, they see a monster. Shit! Oh, wait, the monster is actually somebody's pet, named Mr. Flubby. I love it. In fact, there are a number of monsters walking around town, creatures that would be killed if they were out in the wild, but are living quite peacefully alongside the humans in Unionville. See, who says we can't all get along? And Mar isn't getting any weird looks from people either. The party asks around town about the dragon, and among other things, they find a couple of rumors about monster citizens who just vanished. Went back home, according to a young orc, and hey, the village headman says that other monsters can go back home when they grow up, which kinda sounds like they're prisoners here so long as they're small and easily controllable or something. Shh, nobody look too deeply into this. Most people talk about the headman in some way, so the party decides they ought to talk to him to get the best information. At the headman's house, the party meets Lappy, a cute little fluffy monster child who talks all fancy-like, and apparently has no friends because he looks like an old man. Apparently. Melanie, ever the hater of monsters, is repulsed, but gets bullied by Ash into saying that she'll be Lappy's friend. Lappy's happy, if nothing else, and Melanie, well, Melanie's heart might just be softening a little to those who aren't human. I guess it's easy to like something when they're as adorable as Lappy. Anyway, the headman. Ash explains that he wants to defeat the dragon, and the headman replies by inviting the party to rest there for a while, offering to make them all a feast. I mean, that's not an answer to the dragon problem, but, thanks? Mar, being Mar, is very excited about all the food options. Before anyone can eat, though, a girl runs in and cries that her beloved Mr. Flubby has gone missing. Oh no, not another monster disappearance! Ash offers the party services in finding Mr. Flubby, figuring that they won't be able to enjoy the tasty meal until everything is settled. The girl claims she's looked everywhere in the village but can't find him, and asks that when the party does find him, please give him a wipe down with this stained handkerchief. Okay. A woman claims she saw a strange man dressed all in black outside the village recently, and even stranger, he was carrying a slime with him. It must be Mr. Flubby! Time to go find the man in black. Who definitely isn't a Sephiroth clone. Probably. The party searches around outside the village and comes across a place known as the Nameless Shrine. Inside the shrine, the light is dim, but Ash sees a slime trail on the floor, indicating that maybe, just maybe, a slime like Mr. Flubby came this way. Not too far into the shrine, the party encounters a strange man, dressed all in black, who is holding onto a slime, Mr. Flubby. Ash demands that the man let Mr. Flubby go.
You speak as if I kidnapped him, he remarks.
When Melanie gets a good look at the man, she definitely recognizes him, and he her. Melanie explains that they grew up in the same village. The man begins to say something about the dragon and forbidden magic, but Melanie interrupts to explain that the man is named Vince, and he is obsessed with the dragon for some reason. Vince counters that he's actually looking for the dragon to protect it, thank you very much, and goads Melanie into attacking him. Vince is no pushover, but the party has been tasked with bringing Mr. Flubby home safely, so it seems like a battle is unavoidable. As they exchange blows, Vince drops hints about the darker side of Unionville, of the headman, but before he can reveal too much, the Ivory Order trio show up and stick their nose into things, taking over the fight against Vince. They accuse him of disturbing the peace, and he accuses them of perverting justice. So while Vince and the Ivory Order fight each other, Ash decides this is a great time to just grab Mr. Flobby and hightail it out of there. Mr. Flobby is a slippery little slime though, and darts away as Ash draws near, leading them on in a chase outside the shrine, eventually attacking the group when it becomes clear they're not going to leave him alone. He seems exhausted but enraged, not himself, and the only thing Ash can think of to bring Mr. Flobby back to his senses is to wipe him with the handkerchief that the girl handed over back in Unionville. The girl's scent on the handkerchief helps Mr. Flobby recover his senses, and they all head back to Unionville, where they give back the slimy, sticky handkerchief and request to take Mr. Flobby to the headman to show that they were successful. The girl agrees, but requests that Mr. Flobby come home soon. She's missed him so much. The headman is really pleased to see Mr. Flobby again, and brings out that feast once more. Everyone digs in and enjoys the food, encouraged by the headman to eat all they want. It's not until the meal is over that Ash notices that Mr. Flobby is no longer there. Before he can say anything, the headman brings out dessert, some jelly that looks suspiciously slimy and eerily similar in color to the absent Mr. Flobby. Ash asks the headman if the dessert is, or was, Mr. Flobby.
Is that a problem?
Oh no. The headman, completely damn oblivious to the fact that everyone is distressed by Mr. Flobby being turned into dessert, just thanks the party for bringing the slime back, for making such tasty treats possible. Oh, hell no. So, the party decides to leave, but the headman stops them and requests that Mar stick around because he's so plump and tender and would make a fine meal. Oh, fuck all the way off. Ash beats the ever-loving hell out of the unrepentant headman for suggesting it, and then comforts Mar, who is understandably distressed by what just happened. Looks like Unionville isn't such a great place for humans and monsters to live together after all. As the party tries to leave, the headman, who apparently hasn't been beaten up enough yet, literally throws himself at the party to try and stop them. Mar gets in the way so as to protect Ash, and is stabbed by the headman's dagger. Everyone rushes Mar to the inn, where, despite the wound seeming fairly minor, Mar cannot be roused from unconsciousness. Lappy, the adorable monster who made friends with Melanie not that long ago, pays a visit when he hears that his friends are in trouble. He examines Mar and declares that Mar has been poisoned. The headman's knife must have been coated with it. Lappy sucks some of the poison from Mar's wounds and deposits it in a bottle, handing it over to the party and advising them to go south to Shoreland, where a famous nutritionist should be able to analyze the poison and help them out. Onward to Shoreland! In town, the dragon's roar can be heard, and Ivory Order disciples are making note of it, but that's not important right now. Right now, a trip to the nutritionist is in order. The nutritionist's name is Oreo, and yes, every joke you're making about delicious cookies right now, I assure you, I made them too. Oreo examines the poison extracted from Mar and starts making an antidote, a nutritional supplement to counter the poison, but he needs a spry fish to finish the formula, and spry fish have been hard to find lately. Oreo says his son went fishing and may have already caught a spry fish, so they may not have that hard of a search after all. At the wharf, the party runs into Bruno, Oreo's son. Ash explains that they need a spry fish, but Bruno says that a huge roaring monster keeps scaring away all the fish, so he hasn't caught any lately. Bruno says that there's a nearby harbor though, where loads of local fishermen hang out, so maybe there's a spry fish there. He offers to show everyone the way. At the harbor, lots of fishermen have stories about dangerous waters and poor hauls, but they do find one fisherman who happens to have caught a spry fish. The fisherman isn't willing to give it up for free and charges an outrageous price for it, though Bruno steps in and offers an alternative. A contest of muscles between Bruno and the fisherman. If Bruno wins, he gets the spry fish. If the fisherman wins, Bruno becomes his servant. 'Tis a fierce battle of beefiness, but Bruno emerges victorious in the end. The fisherman hands over the spry fish, and Bruno is quite the gracious winner. Back at Oreo's home, the nutritionist uses the spry fish to finish making the supplement for Mar. Before the party can leave though, Bruno asks to join them, as he really enjoyed the little quest to get the spry fish. Oreo is against the idea, but eventually concedes on the condition that Bruno studies nutrition with him again once he returns. Gotta continue the family business after all. Back at Unionville, the party rushes to the inn to give the antidote to Mar. It works almost immediately, and Ash is moved to tears by Mar's swift recovery. Medicines truly are awesome things. Now though, it's time to see Bruno back to his home and to thank Oreo for his help. Oreo tells the party that the source of the roar that's been bothering the town is located at the top of a nearby tower. Though Bruno had agreed to stay with Oreo once he'd returned, it still seems he wants to stay with the party and help out. Ash says he's welcome to still travel with them, but Oreo is still against the idea, wanting his son to stay home and study nutrition. Bruno tells his father that he's learned the value of nutrition after what happened with Mar, and he wants to travel the world to learn more and to help others. The two get into an argument about it, but eventually Oreo agrees to let his son go, to follow his own path. The journey to the tower isn't an easy one, but eventually the party makes it to what looks like an old lighthouse. Not the most imposing tower ever, but it fits the description. The tower is infested with monsters, making the climb to the top difficult, but eventually the party perseveres. But not before encountering a couple of monsters who straight up call them cruel for going after the dragon like this, though. You know, the more monsters talk in this game, the more they demonstrate that many of them are sentient and intelligent and all that, and the worse I feel about random battles. On the way, Ash asks Melanie why she's so bent on defeating the dragon. Melanie explains that the dragon killed her mother, going into no more detail than that. Poor Melanie. The dragon actually is at the top of the lighthouse. Rather than being all rawr and aggressive, the dragon seems dismayed to see people, like it just wanted to be left in peace. This goes over Ash's head though, as he charges into the attack. Unsurprisingly, the dragon is a tough foe, but the party does significant damage before suddenly Vince arrives to heal the dragon and stop Ash from dealing the final blow. Melanie is particularly incensed at this development and launches a blast of fire at Vince and the dragon. The dragon retaliates in kind, burning Melanie severely before Vince hops on its back and the two fly away. Bruno gives Melanie a bottle of custom-made nutritional supplement to heal her burns, something he says he drinks every day to stay strong. Melanie drinks it, though not without a little trepidation. Back in Shoreland, Oreo runs up to the party to tell them powerful gusts of wind just tore through the town, likely from the flapping of the dragon's wings as it flew away with Vince. The party hoped to charter a boat to follow the dragon over the water, but at the wharf they discover that the wind wrecked so many of the fishing boats and beached others. One woman says that she'll offer use of her boat if the party can get it back in the water, and Bruno takes on the challenge, flexing his mighty muscles, but to no avail. Then... Okay, know how Bruno said that the supplement would make Melanie strong? It did. By making her absolutely freaking ripped. Melanie is extremely unhappy with the situation, made worse by Ash laughing at her, but her newfound physical prowess does help move the boat back into the water, and thankfully, the effect is temporary. Now that the boat is available for use once more, it's time to head after that dragon. Oreo tells the party that the dragon flew in the direction of a western island called Mount Medica, where medicinal research occurs. Ash seems to recognize the name, but doesn't say anything about it to the others. When the boat docks on the island, the party sets off on foot for the nearest village. Ash keeps feeling unsettled by the place, feeling like it's familiar for reasons he can't quite put his finger on. Memories threaten to resurface, but it's like Ash's own mind tries to protect him from something very unpleasant. The party makes their way to a place known as the Village of the Sick, which definitely lives up to its name. The inhabitants are all very ill, desperate for medicine, though the medicine they get seems to only ease the cravings they have for that medicine, not any actual symptoms or underlying disease. Very strange. A man dressed in white armor gives comfort to a youth convulsing in the middle of the street. The young man begs for medicine as dark blood streams from his mouth and eyes, and within moments, he's dead, and no medicine can revive the dead. The party is in shock having witnessed such a horrific scene. The man introduces himself as Sherwin, a member of the Ivory Order, who took it upon himself to care for the people in the village after seeing their plight. His anger over the situation here is made plain when he says,
"If not for these foul drugs, they would be healed."
That doesn't sound like curative medicine to me. In fact, some of the villager descriptions make it sound like all they want is something extremely addictive rather than typical medicines. This doesn't look good at all. Seeking information, the party makes their way to the village leader, a man named Selfor, who is happy to answer any questions. He not only mentions that the dragon returned to the island very recently, but also that the island suffers from a shortage of medicine, which might explain why so many people there seem to crave it. He also says that he's not really a village headman so much as a village overseer, because that doesn't sound sketchy at all. Selfor then offers to discuss the terms of the party living there. Ash corrects him and says that they're only passing through on their way to the dragon. Selfor understands, though he says it was an easy mistake for him to make, what with there being a non-match in the party. Ash reacts incredibly badly to hearing this term, gets a huge headache and begins to panic, storming out before anything else can be said. Mar runs after him, following him to an old rundown house. Melanie and the others catch up without much trouble, and Ash attempts to hide his reaction, downplaying it as a sudden stomachache. Yeah. The group spies the familiar figure of Winifred ducking into the local apothecary. They follow her and eavesdrop, hearing Winifred and the shop owner discuss something about an order for special medicine, but they're speaking too quietly for anyone in the party to make out too many details. Near the edge of town, Sherwin speaks with Berwin and Hedwin, getting details on the dragon's location. Seems the dragon is now hanging out at a nearby volcano. Sherwin says they need to move to capture the dragon but not kill it. Winifred shows up with a bottle of flash freeze to make climbing the volcano easier, and then the four head off. With new information in hand, the party now seeks flash freeze of their own and heads to the apothecary to get some. The apothecary demands a password before being willing to sell it, with the password being special medicine, as in what Winifred was discussing earlier. Now that makes sense, except for the medicine part anyway. Once inside the volcano, Ash pours flash freeze on the lava, creating a rocky path so the party can continue on. It is a grueling climb up the volcano, with yet more monsters set on impeding everyone's progress, but after what feels like a hellish eternity, they encounter the Ivory Order on their own way up. Winifred requests that the party not interfere with their goal of capturing the dragon, which definitely is not what Queen Nilla commanded. Sherwin leads the others deeper into the volcano, leaving Ash and friends to fight more approaching monsters. It's an easy fight, but the Ivory Order is now out of sight. The party needs to hustle to catch up so they can deal with the dragon first and claim all the riches. At the volcano summit, the Ivory Order are engaged in a fierce battle with Vince and the dragon. Ash and the party leap into the fray, desperate for that reward. But before anything else can happen, the dragon smashes its tail into the ground, opening up a hole beneath the feet of the Ivory Order specifically, sending them tumbling to a lower level of the volcano before it retreats. The party presses on in pursuit of Vince and the dragon, finding them at the very edge of the caldera. Ash and his companions fight ferociously against them both, with Melanie in particular being baffled that Vince would sacrifice his life to protect the dragon. Vince's response is to cast forbidden magics to give himself greater strength, standing between the party and the dragon. Vince gets absolutely wrecked in his defense of the dragon, which the dragon doesn't take very well. He doesn't want any more harm to come to people, and when Ash shoots back a litany of the harm that the dragon himself has caused, Vince retorts that it's all lies. The dragon is impressed, though, at everything the party has done in pursuit of him, and he agrees to tell the truth about what's been really happening all this time. See, the dragon is where all these fantastic medicines have been coming from. All the amazing curatives that are literally everywhere, to the point where humanity now has no idea what to do without access to such medicine, all of it is made with dragon tear, literally the dragon's tears. The Ivory Order captured the dragon ages ago and tortured it over and over again to make the dragon cry and get the secret ingredient for all the medicine they make and distribute to people all over the world. And yes, that includes any medicines that people in the party have chugged down to stay alive a little while longer. All of it has come from the dragon's suffering. The dragon has grown tired of suffering for humanity's convenience and begs the party to kill him to end that torment. The Ivory Order won't stop chasing him, intent on recapturing him to begin the torture anew. And killing the dragon will definitely result in all of the riches that were promised by Queen Nilla. But doing so will mean that humanity will no longer have easy access to life-saving medicines that it's come to rely on so much, and chaos will very likely ensue in the aftermath. Honestly, it doesn't matter what decision Ash comes to regarding this, as the Ivory Order shows up once more to get in the way. Hedwin urges Sherwin to capture the dragon, but instead of doing so, Sherwin pulls out a sword and deals a finishing blow to the already wounded dragon. Winifred, Hedwin, and Berwin are shocked by Sherwin's actions, as it was the goal of the Order to bring back the dragon to continue using and abusing it. The volcano begins to erupt though, putting an end to any argument and forcing the Ivory Order members to flee. Melanie tries to convince Vince to escape with them, but Vince refuses, knowing his life is all but over. His final request to the party is to make sure that the Ivory Order does not regain access to Dragon Tear, even if it means Melanie must use forbidden magic herself in order to stop them. Leaving Vince's body behind, the party flees the erupting volcano, saving their own lives even if they couldn't save anyone else's. Back at the Village of the Sick, the party is in the middle of a discussion about what the hell just happened when Ash gets another massive headache again, brought on by being back there. Melanie suggests everyone get some rest, as they've all been through one hell of a shock, and they all head to the inn for the night. Later that evening, the group discusses what they're gonna do now. Technically, the dragon has been defeated. The mission set out by Queen Nilla has been accomplished, so what's even left? Ash replies that he's gonna go after the Ivory Order now, since they are clearly up to no good, except for maybe Sherwin since he acted against the Ivory Order's directives, and there's a mystery afoot, Watson. First step is to check out more of the village for more information, so they pay a visit to the Overseer. They explain to Selfor what happened at the volcano, and then ask what's happening on the island in the first place. Selfor explains that there's a factory on the island where the Ivory Order makes medicine, and this village basically exists in order to give them an endless supply of test subjects to perfect their formulas on before any medicine gets sent out into the wider world. So the villagers who seem completely addicted to medicine are, technically, but it's only because they've been given it so constantly. They don't really get a break. And some of them experience weird side effects as a result of new formulas being tested on them. Sometimes people try to escape, and the Ivory Order always brings them back. Selfor describes a certain familiar old rundown house, the one Ash ran to when they last spoke to the Overseer, and says that a family of 4 used to live there, 2 kids and their parents. Ash gets a terrible feeling and says he wants to go check out that house. So the party heads back there and Ash starts remembering. He remembers how he used to live there alongside his parents and his twin sister Mar. Yeah, Mar's not actually male, by the way, despite everyone referring to her as male through the entire game up to this point. Chalk it up to Ash not having all of his memories. Anyway, he remembers his family being poor and going hungry, remembers his parents trying to escape, getting addicted to medicine, suffering side effects, and eventually dying. He remembers Mar transforming into a monster, her current form, after being given some new medicine, and hearing that this meant she was probably a non-match for the medicine, the same term that Selfor previously used. An Ivory Order member says that only undiluted dragon tear could save her from that fate. Ash didn't transform, and his last memories of the incident were hearing cruel words about how he and Mar should die with their parents as the Ivory Order members walk coldly away, content that they had enough information to report on that batch of medicine. This game knows how to deliver a solid emotional gut punch, I will give it that. Understandably, this story just wrecks the emotions of the others in the party too. But the recovered memory gives Ash hope that Mar's previous form can be restored, so long as they can get their hands on pure dragon tear. It might be kinda tough to get now since the dragon is gone, but the factory where the medicine was made is still on the island, in a place called the Mausoleum, so that seems like the best place to start looking for some. Along the road to the Mausoleum, a giant boulder blocks the path. Before the party can even think about trying to find a way around, however, the Ivory Order trio shows up because of course they do. This time, though, they have no interest in fighting or getting in the party's way. Instead, they're more interested in revealing the truth and being helpful. Hedwyn confirms that yes, their goal was to recapture the dragon because the Order makes a metric buttload of money selling that medicine that they make from the dragon's torture sessions, and, it's kinda hard to just let that go. Not everyone in the Order knew that, of course, but it was still a command sent out to every member. Winifred says that they're still looking for Sherwin, who has vanished, and they suspect he's gone to the Mausoleum to destroy the medicine factory. They too can't get to the factory without getting rid of the boulder in the path, but fortunately that boulder is no match for the might of Ash and friends. The Ivory Order offers some ungrateful gratitude before scurrying away. The Mausoleum is a vast, multi-story tower filled with sterile white walls and floors, and with many Ivory Order guards who attempt to waylay the party. The guards, though, seem kind of weird. Like, they're more than a little brainwashed. Hypnotized. And mindlessly fighting because Sherwin told them to. This doesn't bode well. The ascent through the Mausoleum is fraught with such battles, as well as fights with monsters, and floors filled with dim lighting and loads of spikes and traps because that definitely makes for a successful and productive medicine factory. Seriously, who designed this place? Anyway, the party perseveres and encounters Sherwin standing before an altar. Not just Sherwin, but also the Ivory Order trio, who have collapsed defeated at Sherwin's feet. Oh goody. Sherwin seems in a talkative mood, so he reveals that this room is where the dragon was kept prisoner and tortured so the Order could harvest all the dragon tear. They found the technique to turn dragon tear into various medicines. Sherwin also reveals that the medicine also stole his parents from him, just like Ash and Mar, so he vowed to infiltrate the Ivory Order and climb the ranks until he was in a position to destroy the thing that had caused him so much grief. Now he wants to finish the job and destroy the Mausoleum itself so that no remaining dragon tear or medicine could harm the world again. Sherwin stands before the altar and chants a strange spell. The trio struggle to their feet and spit their rage at Sherwin for betraying everything the Order stood for. Sherwin, however, doesn't give a damn and keeps on with his ritual. Ash attempts to stop him, but Winifred blocks him, saying that Ash isn't strong enough to stop Sherwin. None of them are. Sherwin is just that strong. But all of them might stand a chance if they set aside their differences and fight together. Now that's what I'm talking about. Sherwin puts up one hell of a fight, but is eventually defeated. The altar is also ruined in all the fighting, and all of the bottles that stood atop it, filled with possibly the last of the dragon tear, have smashed on the floor. But wait, it's definitely not the last of the dragon tear, because a weakened Sherwin pulls a vial from his cloak and proceeds to drink it. This has, some unintended consequences.
Sherwin's body begins morphing into something grotesque.
This mutated Sherwin is called,
The Wisaswin.
Dragon Sherwin. So, Dragon Sherwin attacks the party, bent on returning the world to a pure form, an untainted existence, and the party is standing in his way. The Ivory Order trio fights alongside Ash and friends, everyone fighting with all of their might, and just when it seems they might win, Dragon Sherwin transforms once again into an even larger and more ferocious form. This version of Dragon Sherwin is a freaking nightmare, and when it looks like the party is about to strike the final blow, Dragon Sherwin starts gathering power for a massive destructive attack. The party can't move, can't fight back, or put a stop to anything he does. Struggling desperately against the rising tide of power, Melanie remembers the very last thing that Vince said to her before he died.
Your spell can make this world a better place.
She realizes what she has to do. The only thing she can do. Use forbidden magic. Melanie draws her own power, prepared to sacrifice her life in order to stop Dragon Sherwin and save the others. Her power is a match for Dragon Sherwin's, binding him just as she was once bound. The binding on the others breaks, the final blow to Dragon Sherwin is dealt, turning him back into regular Sherwin, who lies dying. Melanie, meanwhile, has been taken over by the forbidden magic and transformed into a monster, just like Mar, and with the same potential cure. Winifred cautiously approaches and hands Ash a small vial, the same one that Sherwin drank the dragon tear from, and at the bottom of the vial is a single solitary drop. It's not much, but it might be enough to restore Mar. Or Melanie. Or the dragon, who could cry out fresh dragon tear that could heal them both, but would continue the cycle of abuse that has ruined so many lives already, but has also kept much of the world happy and healthy in their ignorance of the true cost of all the medicines that they use so freely. Now, breaking the fourth wall for a moment, there are multiple endings to this game depending on who you choose to save. But if you do some things just right, you can get the game's best ending, which is the one I'm going to detail in this video. Because when you get right down to it, isn't a happy ending what we all want? So anyway, when presented with the choice of who to save, Ash, in desperation, wishes for everything. The drop of dragon tear glows brightly, and Ash slips into unconsciousness. He awakens to Rita shaking him, and upon looking around, he sees Melanie, her human form restored. But Mar, where's Mar? Where Mar once stood is a young girl who looks so much like Ash. Mar also restored to her human form for the first time in years. The twins reunite joyously at the end of their adventure. But the story doesn't end there. What about all those riches Queen Nilla promised? Well, she does indeed hand them over, and technically the dragon is dead, and also now she knows the whole truth of the dragon and medicine. The reward just barely pays to repair Ritus's burned home, but that's where the money goes. Bruno goes back to his father. The dragon, who has also been revived thanks to Ash's wish, agrees to keep providing dragon tear, and thus medicine, to the world, but only so long as people generally leave him the hell alone and let him live peacefully. It seems like a fair trade, especially since Queen Nilla takes over control of the medicine trade and puts a firm stop to everything the Ivory Order was doing. The Ivory Order trio, who dogged her steps and made life kinda hellish for a while, leave the Ivory Order and go on to create their own charitable organization instead. And as for Ash, Mar, and Melanie, the three of them set off together to have more grand adventures. The end. And that's the story of Voice of Cards, The Isle Dragon Roars. It's an emotional gut punch at times, and for all that it had some irreverent humor liberally sprinkled throughout, I really enjoyed it, and especially the ability to get a good, happy ending where everything works out well. If you're interested in the game's other endings, then I recommend playing it for yourself. Because really, as much as I strive to bring game stories to people who might not otherwise be able to so easily experience them, the story is only part of a game's experience, and nothing quite beats playing a game for yourself if you can. So, with all that said and done, I want to once more give Square Enix a shout out for providing a copy of the game, and a very special thanks to all of my wonderful viewers who make it so worthwhile for me to keep making these videos. You're great people. Until next time, friends, stay safe and happy gaming.